all its famous medium-defining characters, Nintendo still manages to have uncelebrated stars outside of the limelight reserved for Mario, Link and Pikachu. For a company that have been making video games for 40 years, it's no surprise that countless characters have passed through its canon. Some have become global icons and respected mainstays, while others have garnered a more low-key cult appeal. Smash Bros is a fitting symbol of this, plunging the depths of the Nintendo annals to bring unknowns and has-beens into the mainstream light. The addition of the likes of Marth, Roy, Shulk and Palutena have raised a few inquisitive eyebrows over the years, as has this fella, Lucas. While he looks like an unassuming cutesy cartoon character, the young lad carries something of a deep dark lore. He's an outcast with a troubled, fractured history, and fittingly, the same can be said about the game from which he originates, Mother 3. Listen up and I'll tell you the tragic tale of Nintendo's most overlooked hero. In the late 1980s, a prolific Japanese writer by the name of Shigesato Itoi had an idea for a video game, one that would take the elements of the role-playing titles of the era, high fantasy worlds of warriors and wizards, and transpose them into a more realistic modern-day setting. With no prior experience in game design, Itoi, already a household name in his native country, pitched the idea to Nintendo and won the patronage of the one and only Shigeru Miyamoto. Mother was subsequently released on the Famicom in Japan in 1989, telling the story of a boy by the creative name of Ninten, who sets out to fight off an alien invasion. While praised for its reimagining of the genre's tropes, it's often criticised for its difficulty balance issues, and for good reason if you ask me. I played it once, enjoyed the story, but I sure as hell don't want to sit through such an artificially hard game ever again. Regardless, it set the precedent for a sequel 5 years later in the form of Mother 2 on the SNES, which, unlike the original, saw a North American release where it was known as EarthBound. Initial reception was lukewarm, not helped by a bizarre self-sabotaging press campaign, but its further subversion of the typical JRPG formula would earn it cult appeal, forgoing swords and spells for baseball bats and bottle rockets, and ditching fantastical manga art for a Peanuts aesthetic. The concepts from the first game were fleshed out on the improved hardware, with a more reasonable difficulty curve, bright appealing graphics, and a story that was as charming and comedic as it was dark and twisted. Again, it saw the protagonist, this time Ness, fight off the returning aliens. This wunderkind's subsequent inclusion in the first Smash Bros game in 1999 brought the series to the attention of an even wider audience, and largely thanks to the nascent social internet and emulator piracy, players outside of North America and Japan were able to enjoy it too. Mother had overcome the odds, and fans around the world were now waiting in anticipation of a third installment. But sadly, having an expectant global audience would open very few doors for the series. Work on the sequel, Mother 3, had started as early as the year of EarthBound's release, but a lengthy development hell, which saw it move from the SNES to the failed Nintendo 64 disk drive, ultimately led to its cancellation in 2000. It eventually surfaced on the Game Boy Advance in 2006, by which point the game's production had spanned 3 consoles in 12 years, only for it to again suffer from Japanese exclusivity syndrome, further relegating it within Nintendo's ranks. Dedicated fans have since developed a formidable English translation, but the game has never seen an official worldwide release. Which sucks, Fuzzy Pickles, because Mother 3 is one of the best games I've ever played. It's a travesty that more people haven't gotten to enjoy it, so let me tell you why this humble little adventure deserves a universal release and universal acclaim. Mother 3 takes place in an undefined era sometime after EarthBound, to which it's only tangentially connected in terms of story, much like EarthBound was to Mother 1. It follows the life of Lucas on the Nowhere Islands. His world is torn apart when the menacing Pigmask army invade his hometown of Tazmily village, killing his mother Hinawa in the process. His sorrow is further compounded when his revenge-fueled twin brother Klaus goes missing while trying to avenge her, leaving Lucas and his father, and let me kill Mr. Doppelganger, Flint, to mourn. Family plays more of a role here than in the previous entries, particularly when it comes to the series' maternal namesake. The original Mother, to its credit, had a major plot twist involving a mum. In EarthBound though, Ness's mother was little more than a Pokemon-style healing point, who was largely peripheral to the story, other than the hero sometimes being inflicted with homesickness that could only be cured by visiting or calling her. Hinawa, on the other hand, is a major catalyst for the actions and aspirations of the characters in Mother 3, particularly during the heart-wrenching final scene. Don't worry, I'll let you know when I'm about to discuss any spoilers. The mother in this game's title could also be an allusion to Mother Earth. Much like EarthBound, Mother 3's cartoony charm masks a pitch-black undercurrent of ideological statements, mainly the dichotomy of nature and wholesomeness battling against hollow technological advancement and consumerism, something that rings ever more true in this age of instant gratification and superficiality. The rebalancing of nature has been a common motif in Japanese media. I touched on it in my last video about Pokemon Red and Blue, but it's also prominent in Miyazaki films like Princess Mononoke. In Mother 3, the goal of the Pigmasks is to establish industrialization and commerce in a game that doesn't even believe in money at first. They destroy the landscape to build factories and cities while turning the wildlife into synthetic, monstrous hybrids. To desensitize the people of Tazmily to this, they introduce happy boxes to their homes, a thinly veiled metaphor for the corrosive power of television advertising. Soon, the charming village of which you've grown fond becomes a bustling capitalistic town. There's more going on than the music has a spring in its step, but there's an odd darkness behind the idea of the inn becoming a hotel and the humble bakery transforming into a restaurant when you consider the sinister motive behind the supposed upgrade. In the same way that Shigesato Itoi's hard work and largely absent father inspired Ness's unseen dad in EarthBound, it seems that the inspiration behind Mother 3 is a desire to reform Japan's exhaustive working week and return to a more simplistic, wholesome, family-based way of life. No clearer is this than on completion of the game when the metallic logo regains a rustic wooden appearance. You might be playing the game on the sort of digital technology it rails against, but so evocatively painted are the Nowhere Islands that as the community's heart is taken away piece by piece, it makes you yearn for the pleasant, organic simplicity of old, nostalgic for a past that isn't even your own. Lucas and his band of misfits refuse to drink the Kool-Aid, which leads them on an adventure to stop the pigmasks and restore harmony to their homeland. What's instantly more striking in terms of the storyline when compared to the previous games is the episodic playstyle, in which you take control of various characters. For as much as Lucas is the protagonist, you don't gain full control of him until around the halfway point, allowing you a greater worldview of the people and places of the once idyllic Isles by witnessing overlapping stories from different perspectives. This was central to Itoi's vision. He harboured a desire to break away from the ephemeral road trip nature of RPGs and instead focus on a single area changing over time. This is palpable in Tasmally, physically and atmospherically. You'll get to wander around the beach alone with Flint the morning after his wife's death as the music takes on a mournful tone, and you'll play as an enslaved monkey named Salsa, offering an early glimpse into the enemy's plans. It's these vignettes that help fully actualise and establish the heroes' personalities and reasons for their involvement in the story, something I felt was a bit lacking in EarthBound. In that game, the other characters' roles often felt quite surface level. Paula was, by and large, a typical damsel in distress. In terms of story progression, Pooh was pretty crap, and even Ness was something of a voiceless everyman and typical chosen one, dropped into the adventure without much reluctance by a friggin' talking bug. Now before anyone comes after me, I hasten to add that I still love EarthBound, I just found that its playable characters were largely devoid of chemistry. The interactions between Mother 3's cast are far more intricate, warm, funny and genuine. Lucas, as opposed to a chosen one, is an innocent child, a crybaby to be blunt, who has heroism thrust upon him by personal tragedy. He's joined by Kumatora, a tomboyish princess, Duster, a handicapped, dim-witted but good-hearted thief, and Boney, an often anthropomorphised dog. They're not quite archetypal hero material, but the game has you rooting for the ragtag bunch who even learn new abilities through strange menstruation-like fever and recover health by bathing in rejuvenative hot springs, a traditional Japanese symbol of relaxation amidst the hustle and bustle of everyday life. This organic way of finding their strength subtly contrasts them against an enemy that relies on forced, unnatural change. The message of Mother 3 is don't make fun of those who don't fit in, those underdogs might just save the world one day. On my first playthrough, I found that the game also subtly ties your experience to the anarchic ideal that money isn't everything, despite what the pigmasks might say. It was partly my own fault for missing a piece of information, but I made it a good chunk of the way through the story with relative ease while spending barely a penny, unlike other RPGs in which grinding for money between towns is imperative to improving your arsenal come the next shop. I didn't actually realise my earnings were going into a froggy banking system, and I ended up amassing a small fortune by the halfway point. Maybe I'd learned nothing from the game though, as I then splurged on materialistic goods just because I could. According to Mother 3, I'm everything that's wrong with the world. I'm now going to discuss some major plot twists, including the ending of Mother 3, so skip to the time on screen if you'd like to avoid that. Wealth and power were also themes of EarthBound, and no one symbolises this more than the returning antagonist, Porky, also known as Pokey. He was introduced as Ness's ne'er-do-well neighbour, whose spoiled, arrogant behaviour gave way to him becoming a henchman of the evil alien overlord Gygas. At the end of EarthBound, he escapes through time, which lines up the events of Mother 3. Here he comes back as the unseen leader of the pigmasks, the one responsible for disrupting the natural harmony of the Nowhere Islands and recklessly driving away or killing its inhabitants. In the previous game, his family lived in poverty and he was driven by a desire to rise out of it, eventually landing a job at a lavish company in the city of Forside. His corruption at the hands of both Gygas and money helps establish the socialism versus capitalism motif that runs into Mother 3. Porky's transformation from a mischievous, Gary Oak-like rival to a tyrannical, time-travelling, godlike creature makes for a horrific juxtaposition of childhood innocence and nihilistic evil. His barbaric army and their theme song's resemblance to nursery rhyme Frère Jacques serves to further this contrast. There's an underlying sadness to it all though. It's heavily implied that Porky's hatefulness stems from an abusive childhood and being spurned by the only one he considered a friend, Ness. The protagonist of EarthBound had a yo-yo, which we find kept as a treasured item in Porky's Mother 3 playroom. It's hard not to feel a degree of sympathy for the now elderly, time-ravaged boy who just wanted a pal, and it makes him one of the most sad and scary antagonists in Nintendo history. After the showdown with Porky, during which he locks himself in the inescapable Absolutely Safe capsule, condemning him to eternity alone, comes the true final battle with Klaus, revealed to have been turned into one of Porky's chimera henchmen. This largely scripted face-off sees your party knocked out except for Lucas, who is unable to fight back and simply has to heal to survive his brainwashed brother's onslaught as their mother pleads with him from beyond the grave. This makes you sympathise with the protagonist via gameplay mechanics. Your inability to retaliate in the normal way reflects Lucas's confusion and reluctance to attack Klaus, heartbreakingly summed up by the line, "Lucas isn't sure what to do anymore." After his mother's comforting words remind him of who he really is, Klaus is seemingly overcome with grief and kills himself via his own reflected attack, apologising and thanking his family as he dies in his brother's arms. There's a reason the original slogan for this series was "No crying until the end." They aren't the only evocative baddies though. His henchman, named Fassad, is a genuinely repulsive, despicable character who'll have you shouting at your screen due to his physical abuse of Salsa, who he continually electrocutes using a rigged collar. This animal cruelty, however, is possibly the reason that we haven't seen a Western release of Mother 3. Censorship. The game might look like a cartoon, but it's chock full of mature, controversial, divisive themes and references, including God, death and suicide, sexual harassment, subtle anti-war messages, alcohol and drug consumption, and even the odd swear word. While Nintendo could easily rewrite the textual side of the fan translation, they'd have a harder time masking the physical violence and body horror that comprise several of the game's significant moments. The most striking is an early scene in which Flint receives the news of Hinawa's death and violently lashes out at the townsfolk in anger before being knocked out himself with a plank of wood, all while his children's eyes are shielded from such brutality. There's also a particularly distressing Lost-inspired chapter in which the heroes trip balls on hallucinogenic mushrooms. Not even kidding. That's not to mention the pig masks doing what looks like the Sieg Heil salute, previously censored in Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door and, in multiple instances, Pokemon, and the masked man's resemblance to an SS officer. Then there's the underwater section, in which the heroes replenish their oxygen by getting a snog from various mermen. Nintendo's track record on same-sex relationships has been less than stellar, so what chance do these amorous sea creatures or the androgynous Magypsies have? The first two games were subjected to heavy censorship outside of Japan. Having to make these excessive changes to match modern Western standards could mean a localization of Mother 3 will never be on the cards, as it may be easier for the publisher to not even risk handling these sensitive issues. Nintendo have often been hit with the unfair accusation that they make childish games. While it's true that many of their big franchises are family friendly at face value, Mother 3 subverts that notion. It looks saccharine, but it is in fact a brilliant balance of palatably sweet and shockingly sour. It's genuinely one of those games that you'll start to miss after the credits roll, the kind that leaves a little hole in the soul. The success of quirky, Mother-inspired RPGs over the last few years like Undertale, Lisa and Eastward have opened the doors for an influx of new fans, and to have only the first two Mothers universally available leaves things in an unfair state of incompletion. It's been almost 16 years since Mother 3 was released, and despite years of hoping, speculation, cornering Reggie and tweets from Terry Crews, no rumours of a re-release have ever come to fruition. We can only continue to pray that one will materialise at some point, because every day that a wider audience of gamers miss out on this dazzling hidden Nintendo gem is a crying shame.